Hello, I'm Mark with the See Within You, and I have a quick example on using age point with a client that hopefully gives a little bit of a sane approach, a realistic way of kind of working with them whenever they contact you for a consult and when they're looking for information, right? Clients usually only come to astrologers when things are red hot. You don't just wake up in the morning and decide you want to see an astrologer. There's usually something really pressing going on. This example is going to focus on, though, psychosynthesis coaching or psychosynthesis therapy and how it relates to pulling in astrological psychosynthesis, especially the Huber method, and the timing system we use that's an internal timing system called age point. So hopefully I can break this down in a nice kind of quick and succinct kind of manner for you. So here is the client example of the chart I'm going to work with. And I have other videos on Huber charts that you can click through and get an example of. And my age point video that's over an hour long gives a full breakdown. So I'm going to just jump right into kind of breaking this down. The client contacted me. I've worked with them about 4 years ago. And their request was focusing on, obviously, relationships. And I say obviously because pretty much every client is interested in either career or relationships. And the biggest impetus for them, though, was that they were really feeling this pull. Should I move to Europe? Right? Should I sell my lovely home? Should I dissolve all that in where I live? And should I sell it? Should me and my 20-year-old daughter move to Europe, experience the whole process of living abroad and everything else? So basically stay or go. And they were smart. They know me. They're very articulate, and they felt they should I should make a shameless plug here for the Mercury conjunct Sun in Gemini. Native Gemini speaking here as well. So hence, yes, quite adept at making their own decisions. Anyhow, moving right along, what the actual request was, should I stay or should I go? And actually, that's a really classic horary question. People want direct outcomes, direct answers. The horary would give great feedback on that. I actually cast a horary chart, and it was actually one of the more confusing ones I had. It was both saying absolutely go and absolutely, long story short, would be a problem with actually just packing up and moving to Europe. It was really conflicted. Most horary charts are a little bit of ambivalence tapped into it, and they can be a bit confusing. However, this one was jaggedly really confusing, so I had to put the brakes on and said, let's take a look at your natal chart, which I did. And the first thing I go to, of course, when working with a client is always the age point. So here we go. For the age point, this is showcasing a couple things. Right off the bat, what we have is this individual is expressing right at the cuspal point of Gemini, so that's very mutable energy, and it's cardinal. It's right at this 10th house cusp. So when you have cardinal and mutable mixed together, it's like sliding down a water slide at high speed. There's a real desire, nature within the individual to push out. That would be true for anybody, but in this case with Gemini's sign of, said, the mutable quality and air, there's a real lightness and expression of that you can take to the bank. And also what we have here is around the house, the 10th house is obviously one of the four main points, and it's the axis of individuation as well too. So individuating around, I could wax poetic about individuation forever, but selfhood, of right livelihood, of standing on top of the pile, right? It's the MC. You don't want to get too lost into jobs and careers. Those are important at every juncture, usually, of everybody's life. But at this point, at the internal real manifestation side, the soulful expression of the individual, there's a real push outward to the environment. That would be true all the way through to the balance point here. In this case, though, we really have to be drawn to what's going on. That's also true, but look at this. It's a crossing point. Once every 36 years, or once in a chart in this case, we have this crossing point right on the individuation axis, right? 10th and 4th, home and vocation, what have you, meets this crossing point. Again, crossing points are where the timing system of the point of consciousness that we see through the age point is matched up with the moon node age point, which represents the shadow, a summation of past lives, its own timing system of events from the past that kind of come in to highlight now, just to keep it simple. So there's this desire nature. More importantly, what you can take to the bank is that this is red hot. Usually for an astrologer, you like seeing these because they give a lot of ooh, ah, gravity to the whole process, right? You're trying to help people and you want big things to jump out. You shouldn't have to go looking really hard for the archetypal and the chart expressions. If you have to paint the screen full of asteroids or looking for small little transits, what have you. In this case, the age point always provides that big brush stroke, and sometimes it's all you really need to use to work with an individual. So in this case, we know that with a crossing point, everything before and after is going to be largely different for that person. Okay, that's all we know at this point. And of course, we're really drawn to a couple things here. Look at this cluster. Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus, right in the first house. So that's very cuspal for them. So when you bring in Jupiter, Pluto, and Uranus, you can think of the big transformation, creative, radical, I'll let you pick your words for those planets, but it's not soft, okay? This is not a soft stellium, and it is extremely close and personal to them in their first house. So what we do know is that with a square, you cannot sidestep those, and you can't sidestep them, anywhere in the chart, or transits and what have you, but at an age point level, there is huge declaration of the will to work these planets, these planetary archetypes, these energies. Our birth charts are designed to express themselves, and when the age point comes into highlight with them, especially cardinal position here, squaring this cluster, this individual needs to find hopefully a healthy, soulful way to let these energies out. So you could start and actually just stop there. I snuck a peek at their solar returns. Yes, there's absolute qualities towards 9th house and travel, but we can run into a real, I think, failure here on the part of the astrologer is to try to nail this down into a form. The form that she and we should actually, stay with the qualities, because we don't want to be too arrogant or advance ourselves to throw ourselves into the chart. We know what the soul is trying to do. If we, hopefully a little bit, I should say, we don't fully know, but we know that this quality is important for them. And I'm going to show you one other little thing I would look at. This is showing the moon node chart here of all past lives, the desire nature, the shadow, where they've come from. This is a radical shift, okay, of all this cluster of that stellium of Pluto, Jupiter, and Uranus moving from the 7th house. So quite a bit of energy, everything we just mentioned, placed in the U side of the chart around relationships, business, both partner and love affairs, you name it, has now been thrusted 180 degrees over to this side of the chart. That alone is quite important, perhaps jarring, and a lot to handle in one lifetime that this client is working through now with the squares. So I'm going to flip back to the age point here. I realize this is getting quickly technical, but it'll serve the point. If you just go with me in this birth chart now, if based on that crossing point, so it's kind of highlighting both that moon node chart and the natal chart together. It is saying, I demand action for you to work through these principles, etc., etc. I don't know what those real principles are in forms. They could take many forms. In this case, the individual is seeking a new form for themselves. I want to sell the house. I want to move to Europe. I want to blow it all up in Uranian fashion, wipe it clean like only Pluto can do. Pluto is the immovable principle, and Jupiter, of course, is not going to hold back and will actually fan those flames and allow for a greater, expansive, complete expression. And it needs to hit terra firma, of course, being in an earth sign. So that's where I would be with the client. I would avoid locking into just the travel. I know that's important, so we need to take their lead and obviously honor that they want to travel and perhaps sell the house. To kind of bring this down for them, I would help them unpack and look at the qualities through imagery, through dialogue, through a lot of discussion to try to expand the awareness, right? Because the client is coming in with just, I need to sell the house, I need to move to Europe. You know, there's this real internal zest, right? This is very, very fruitful, very full of energy. Something needs to happen, and it will happen through this. What we're doing as astrologers is hopefully padding this out, staying with the qualities, not buying in completely to just the form of this of the client wanting to travel, but opening it up to show really what this potentially could mean, right? And we're not even going to know fully as astrologers, but when we speak to the soul picks up on this, and it knows and it feels heard really cleanly. So if we take our time, and this is the point where I would absolutely use imagery techniques. I would do a lot of imagery within the archetypes of these planets and allowing them free association, allowing them to uncover the story on their own terms and work with their will, and using the active will through psychosynthesis, which involves a whole bunch of obviously discernment, and we need to go through the planning phases and then eventually get to manifestation. But at this point, there's just this internal kind of, let's sell the farm and run away to Europe, which is lovely, right? There's no judgment. But what we want to do is have it so that the client is making a full, expanded, heartfelt, right? Heartfelt, yes, a complete, I am aligned with this and I am affirmed act of will, so that it's not just about going to Europe and maybe the same issues surface there, but that we can unpack it more, that movement to Europe is really about a fuller life expression around this stellium here, around becoming larger than life, dealing with these Pluto, and Uranus energies, which are transpersonal, and Jupiter is not going to be subtle. It doesn't have to be dramatic, but for them to feel heard and to dig in to this expression so that it becomes what it can truly be, and that it's not just a regretful, I sold the house, but that if they choose to sell the house, which we wouldn't steer them away from, just that their awareness around becoming is fully livened out. You know, maybe they want it to also become, I don't know, a student again. Maybe they want to express their individuality through various other means. And when they can articulate that, feel comfortable with it, they'll have a lot more autonomy and agency to really pull that off in a manner that is coherent and aligned with what this white center of the chart is trying to do, which we don't ever fully know. But what we want to do is work with these energies as clearly and closely as possible. And yes, you can see that there is this sextile to Venus here and a quincunx to Moon Neptune. I won't get into that just because I'm really focusing on the juice here, which for them was moving to Europe, right? Really taking precedence. This is showing the, horizontal view of the age point, and I like this because they're coming to see me right now. And look at this. It's really at that kind of exact moment, if you will, with Pluto. So it's red hot, looking for, keywords, transformation, etc., etc. And yes, of course, that Venus, a lovely connection to that, will be starting up soon. Might be have started up already, because the age point is a gong effect, and you don't really know when people's consciousness line in. I use an orb of 165 days, so that's why you're seeing these lines at this kind of orb level. But as she's cycling through this, you can take it to the bank that stellium itself is getting hit, even though Jupiter and Uranus is technically not occurring, like I said, till last year. It's important to go back and realize that entire stellium is getting hit. So it's all getting hit, and it's just starting off with Pluto. So I'll stop there. It was a bit of a mouthful, and hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. When we're working with the qualities for an individual, I don't fully know what they're going to do. I mean, they'll do what they choose to do. They have free will. And this isn't about being smart or proving yourself as an astrologer that they're going to yes move or not move, or they're going to get a new job, etc., etc. I realize that's extremely important in various ways, but for what we're doing here is highlighting, padding out the agency, giving the awareness to the individual, working with what the chart is trying to pull off in this lifetime. And I think that's really, really valuable, and it's a healthy professional way of working with them, rather than trying to lock a client specifically into a form and kind of tell them what they're going to do by chasing transits and, creating a bit of a soap opera, if you will, and throwing ourselves into the chart, which is never a good idea. And this way, the individual always feels more in control and heard, and not limited to simply one expression of the birth chart. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense, and fire in some comments. This was almost 18 minutes long, and I originally expected this to be about three to 5 minutes. So my apologies. And but yes, let me know if I can help kind of break this down, and let me know if you think this is a valuable way of working with a client as well. Take care.